All right, guys, welcome. Thank you, everyone who's going to be watching this later. Got a special guest here. I have Kyler Blades, an old baseball player and old baseball buddy of mine, so I'm super excited to have you. Kyler, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, right? You're not exactly on the Pacific Northwest anymore. And tell me a little bit about yourself. Go for it.
Yeah, I am based in Montana right now, where I grew up. Like you said, I played baseball all through college. I studied adolescent and pre-adolescent athletes, got my BS in kinesiology, and studied a little bit of business. So now I am the head of youth training at a gym I work at, and I also have my own private business I do online.
Tell me a little bit about the adolescent training. What got you wrapped up in that? Why did you choose to go down that path?
Well, it had to have started when I was really young, and I just wanted to be the best athlete I could be the best baseball player I could possibly be. And coming from a small town in Montana, there wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a whole lot of options for me. I remember hitting tennis balls in a racquetball court, and that was kind of all I could do for baseball for, 6 months out of the year because there's so much snow.
Sure.
And then I would drive myself crazy going to the gym 5, 6, 7 times a week, lifting as hard as I can all the time. And I knew there just had to be a better way to do things. And so that's where my passion kind of grew for it.
Groovy. And then how does that passion and kind of that drive translate into an online business? What are you trying to accomplish with that?
Yeah, so my online business, we try and set a lot of goals. First things first, you need to be internally motivated to accomplish what you want. I'm there to kind of give you that extra push, and whether it be sport performance, whether it be fat loss, whether it be just trying to have a better life overall. I'm there to help you reach your goals, kind of whatever they are. So I have a really cool customizable app that I work with that allows me to program really anything I want into it. And so it can be fit for really anybody. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. And you have a website, I assume, right?
Yes, sir.
What's the website?
www.bladesapa.com. APA
Awesome.
stands for Athletic Performance Academy, and that's all my social media as well.
That's great, man. And tell me a little bit about this app. Who'd you partner with? How does it work? Is it easy to use? Is it complicated? Is it simple?
Yeah, super easy to use. I partnered with a group out of Seattle called Volt Athletics. They provide the app, and what the app is basically, it was made for college coaches and colleges that couldn't afford full-time strength coaches. And so what they do is this app was kind of their strength coach. So what I do is I use that as a personal training tool and customize programs for anybody. And so I'm their coach, but I'm coaching people in Massachusetts. I'm coaching people in New Mexico. I'm coaching people in Arizona, Washington, Oregon, all these different places. It's this remote training app, and it's a really cool platform too. It makes you stay accountable. I can go in and see if you're doing all the workout, if you're not doing all the workouts, if you're improving, if you're staying the same. And then every 2 weeks I pop on the phone with every client and we talk about goals, we talk about accountability, we talk about nutrition, all these different things. So it's pretty versatile as far as an app goes. It's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For those who are watching this who don't know who I am, my name is John Welborn. I'm a fat loss and body transformation specialist. I'm in Fairview, Gresham, Portland area over there in Oregon. And I do mostly in-house stuff. I own my own gym. I do some online stuff. So if you're curious about that, you can always shoot me an email. But I got into my kind of niche and what I'm super passionate about, mostly because of my family. Both my parents are very, very hardworking individuals. My mom worked 3 jobs. My dad worked 2. And my dad was extremely stressed. We owned a house that we had no business affording. It was way too much. That's why they both worked so much. And my dad ended up having 2 heart attacks and brain surgery from when I was in 8th grade all the way to my senior year in high school. So I spent a lot of Christmases and New Year's in the hospital and things like that. My dad was very sick. My dad still gets very, very sick. And so I saw from a young age just how important the quality of health and fitness plays into a role into your life in general, and how it affects different people in your family, your extended family, your friends, their family. And so I went to college not knowing what I wanted to do per se, but I knew I wanted to find a way to help families stay together longer and be happier and healthier together, just because I didn't really get that. So I got inspired by one of my trainers, one of my coaches, and found myself 6 years later doing what I do now. So that's a little bit about me. If you guys are curious, you can go to my social media, which is My Trainer John for Facebook and Instagram. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how many calories you should be eating. So I'm going to focus more so on the fat loss aspect of things. Kyler, you're probably going to focus a little bit more on the sports performance athletic side, which is great. I think that's going to be a good topic for me to listen to as well. So Kyler, why don't you start a little bit about, if I was an athlete, relatively new to the game, right? I'm trying to put on a little bit of muscle. I'm trying to stay athletic, stay lean so I can still play my sport well, but I'm trying to gain strength, gain explosive power and rotational force so I can play my sport better. What am I supposed to be eating? How much am I supposed to be eating? When am I supposed to be eating it? How often am I supposed to be training? That kind of stuff. Why don't you take it from there?
So in general, I would say probably 95% of people I deal with undereat. Okay. And sometimes it's hard to fuel your performance like you should. So that being said, it's different for everybody. It depends on your age. It depends on your natural, height and weight. And we kind of start with a basal metabolic rate. Okay. So if you don't know what that is, basal metabolic rate, BMR, is a number where the amount of calories that your body needs to function during a day. So like if you laid in bed all day, your BMR is how many calories you'd have to eat. So I do tests on people all the time to find out their BMR, and typically they're between 1,300 and 1,800 calories. All right. I have a lot of people that usually maybe eat 1,500 calories in a day. If you're an athlete, if you're active, you need to be eating well above that, okay? Strength is probably the most important factor in all sports, and if you are fueling yourself under your basal metabolic rate, there's no way you're going to be able to add any strength, and all the hours you're putting into the gym is going to be for naught.
Sure.
So what I would suggest would be, waking up early. A lot of times I find that people don't eat a big breakfast, and so a lot of times they skip breakfast. And so breakfast is, they say it's the most important meal of the day, and I totally agree. I try to get, 1,000 to 1,200 calories in the morning to really start your day off right. And typically, 3 square meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then a couple snacks in between. And I know that's hard to do sometimes for a lot of people, but it can be done. You just got to plan beforehand, and that's probably the toughest part. So planning out your meals beforehand and eating nutrient-dense foods, that's one of the biggest things for people that don't get enough calories. You got to make them count. So nutrient-dense foods, I usually wake up, I have 4 eggs, try to get an avocado, maybe a little bit of turkey bacon, and a big old, 700-calorie smoothie or something like that. So nutrient-dense foods, we're talking about, some examples would be like an avocado, Greek yogurts. I put coconut oils or coconut butters in my smoothies, dried fruits, nuts, all those are kind of the go-tos for me as far as nutrient dense foods that someone will need to fuel their performance.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's a good point, because I was watching this video yesterday, and this gentleman pulled out 100 calories worth of a McDonald's burger, and it was a quarter of the burger. And the burgers are like this big anyways. And so a quarter of the burger was 100 calories. And then he filled a plate, like a full plate full of vegetables, a little bit of fruit, because fruit's a lot of sugar, so you can't go too crazy. But it was significantly more food, just having more dense foods into your life than you could ever get, going the cheap packaged route. And so that's an excellent point. And that kind of funnels into fat loss a lot, really, because most of the problems that people struggle with fat loss is that they're not in a caloric deficit. See, it's the opposite. If the basic law of thermodynamics states that if you're burning more energy than you're consuming, you have to lose weight. It's just science, right? And so most people who struggle with weight loss aren't doing that, even though they think they are, because they're not actually eating a lot of food. A lot of the time people skip breakfast. Maybe they eat two, sometimes I've seen even one meal a day, but that one meal is putting you over your maintenance calories, right? Your total daily intake for maintenance. And so if you want to lose a pound a week, you have to be in a caloric deficit. And an easy way to do that without feeling hungry is to eat more nutrient dense foods, because yes, you're right. Nutrient dense foods not only give you more of an energy boost, it helps you perform better, but you know how hard it is to eat, 500 calories worth of chicken? It's impossible. That's like 20 ounces, right? Yeah. And so, eating nutrient, low calorie foods can make you feel full. It can help reduce your calorie intake, which will help you lose weight. It can still taste good. You can go make some chicken Parmesan cheese, you can do some fun stuff with it and still be well below that maintenance calorie intake for the day. So that's
so what do you, a lot of times I encounter, because I do some testing on new members at the gym I work at, and sometimes they're overweight, and we talk about a little bit about what they eat. A lot of times they're really, really low calories. And so can you talk a little bit about, your body getting used to that low calorie intake, and then that becomes the norm, and then it becomes even harder to lose the weight? Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so your body will respond to whatever kind of situation you put it into, right? It's what it's designed to do. So if you mentioned your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. If your basal metabolic rate is 1,000, right, and you eat 1,000 calories for an extended period of time, your body gets used to having such a low activity level, such a low metabolism, that it doesn't do anything with those 1,000 calories. It doesn't need to, because you're not putting in any demand on it. And so once you start fueling your body more, though, your body starts recognizing that it's getting more nutrients, it's processing the nutrients better, and you start to find that by eating more, you're actually going to lose more, because you're putting your body back into a state that it's supposed to be in. It will adapt to whatever you do. It'll adapt to you eating 500 calories. You just won't function very well. And if you're not functioning on a cellular level very well, you can't really do anything, not to mention perform. But on a fat loss aspect, there's no way.
I just think, the solution is not, always, and I think that's kind of a dogma that we have in the world, is the solution is not always just to eat less.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the right thing to do. Everyone's a little different. You got to kind of understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. And what I've found is there's really 5 laws that you have to follow if you want to lose fat, if you want to build lean muscle, and you'll agree with this when I start throwing them out at you. But to lose fat, there's 5 things you have to follow. Eat in a caloric deficit. You got to eat less than the maintenance calories required, right? That's pretty simple. You should probably have your macros balanced. One of the biggest things that I see is that most people walk into my facility and their macronutrients, when I map it out, is 70 to 75% carbohydrates.
Yep, exactly. That's what I thought you were going to say.
You can't burn fat tissue if you're relying on sugar all day. So balance it back out. Bring it back down to 40, do a 40-30-30 split. Start there, and you'll start to see a lot of good results coming your way.
Like it.
Portion size and food log. Right? You and I are both business people. We probably track all of our numbers. We track all of our clients' numbers, all of their performances numbers. I mean, if you don't know what you're tracking, if you're not tracking it, you can't improve upon it. So it's the same thing with calorie intake. If you're not tracking to make sure you're in a caloric deficit and you're balancing out your macros, how are you supposed to fix it if you're not?
Right. So what do you use for tracking? I mean, MyFitnessPal is kind of the go-to for a lot of people. What do you use? Do you use an app? Do you use pen and paper?
No, I use MyFitnessPal. Yeah, I use it myself. I mean, I could tell you what I could pop onto MyFitnessPal and tell you what I ate a year ago. Yeah. So,
Nice. Very good.
I use MyFitnessPal. It's the most user friendly. It's the most widely used. And so the margin of error is pretty small. And, they have the bar scanner code thing now, so you can like bar scan code everything. So it just makes it really easy for people. Food log your food. Number 4 is drink more water. Most of the people that wander into my gym, man, sometimes 8 to 16 ounces of water for someone who should be drinking closer to 100. And if it's a macronutrient that helps process vitamins and minerals and take it into cells and help cells improve and help your metabolism function better, you should probably be drinking it, right? And so drink more water. And especially if you're a sports performance athlete, you need to be drinking a ton, especially if it's in season, you're going to be taxing your body a ton. And then step number 5 is to move more, be more active, and strength train. And the reason why strength training is so important is if we can build more lean tissue, build more lean muscle, we can raise that basal metabolic rate. We can improve how many calories your body burns without you having to really do anything. And that will improve your fat loss as well. So talk to me a little bit about the style of strength training that you do.
So I come from, I like to listen to a lot of strength coaches around the country. Some of the guys I listen to, Eric Cressy, Mike Boyle. And I took a lot of the stuff from Mike Boyle when kind of talking about how I design workout programs. I also am reading Brett Bartholomew's new book, Conscious Coaching. That's a really good one too, if you want to check it out. But, Mike Boyle operates, there's no leg day. There's no arm day. You want to be efficient with the time with the amount of time you're putting in the gym. So what he comes from is doing 4 basic movements and then a core activity. So those are kind of the 5 things that I do when designing a workout program. We do a knee dominant movement, which is like a squat family movement, lunge, whatever. A hip dominant movement, which would be like deadlifts, good mornings, anything where you're working on that hip hinge. We do a push, bench press, push up, whatever, and a pull. Okay, that'd be like a row or a pull up or whatever you want to do, and then a core exercise. So those are kind of the 5 main things that I implement in all of my strength training programs. And frequency, what I've heard and what we implement is 2 days a week to maintain the strength that you have right now. 3 days a week to make some little gains, make some minimal gains. And then 4 days a week is kind of the sweet spot. That's where we want to be at to maximize performance. 4 days a week strength training.
Interesting. So you don't find that 3 days a week is enough?
It's enough. It is enough, especially in season. We don't want to be stressing the body so much that, it's becoming a detractor to performance. Typically in season, actually 2 days a week. But when you're out of season, I would like, high level athletes to be training at least 3 and maximum of 4 days a week.
Sure.
Strength training.
See, I have this client right now. He's a hockey player. He's trying to get drafted into the WHL. And he is always in season. And maybe you've seen this because I know I experienced this when I was a kid, right? I played basketball, then I played baseball, then I played hockey, then I went back to baseball for summer ball, and then it started all over again. When you're young, it's tricky to be able to build lean muscle. It's tricky to be able to put in a lot of effort and go max in the gym, because in 2 hours you're going to be out on the ball field and you can't really be sore in your hamstrings. You might pull something. So how do you deal with that when someone is such an all-around athlete that they're playing 3-4 sports and there is no off season? What do you do?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and growing up in this small town, I played football, baseball, basketball, golf. Growing up, and my dad was my coach all the way through, and it was an awesome experience. But the way things are going now, and this is going to sound like I'm advocating for sport specific. You got to play one sport, and that's not really true. I think overall athletic development, playing as many sports as you can up until about high school should be pushed. But once you kind of get into freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school, you might need to focus on one or two sports. You know, if you want to become that top of the line varsity starter, or you want to get a college scholarship, or you have an opportunity to get to the professional level, you might have to focus on one. You know, you might be able to play two, but you might have to focus on one.
Right.
You know, so I would suggest, you know, your third sport being a strength training regimen, strength training program. And that's kind of what I recommend.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, and that was something that I struggled with too, because I was fortunate enough to love the sport that I was best at, which was baseball. But I really enjoyed cross country. I thought I was really good at it. I played varsity in high school, or I ran varsity in high school. But this is what happened, because it was such a drastic sport difference, is that I went to college to play baseball 65 pounds too light. I had no strength because I would just run it off. So, you know, I had to take that redshirt year my freshman year because I had too many injuries from running, and I didn't weigh enough to be able to put any oomph behind a baseball. So I had to spend, you know, 365 days putting on as much lean muscle mass as I possibly could, which is why I hired that trainer that I mentioned earlier. Otherwise, I was going to get cut anyways. So there is that big potential. If your sports are so drastically different, such as that, you are going to run into some problems later down the road. Plus when you're playing, I'll just keep it to my client here. When you're playing hockey, and you're clearly trying to make that your thing. You're trying to go into the WHL. You're going to fly for the next year of your high school career. You're going to be in Washington, D.C. You've lived in Canada. You're clearly making that your priority. Trying to be, average at a different sport and trying to do well in hockey just makes you average at both, when you could be putting a lot of time into that hockey career of yours and really making a big run for that dream. So there's that fine balance, because I hate, pulling dreams away from kids.
Yeah, no, you don't. I mean, you don't want to do that. But as they're growing up, this is kind of what I really I did my capstone on this athletic development at a young age. And so, the neurons in a little kid's body, the coordination is the first thing that you're trying to work on, really. And so that's why you play a lot of sports growing up. But then once you find that one that you truly love, go for it.
Absolutely.
Go for it and go for it all year long.
Absolutely.
Be doing a strength training regimen, play baseball, in the spring, summer, maybe a little bit in the fall, and then in the winter, do your strength training program, take some time off of that sport, and maybe play a little basketball or something. That's what I did. Absolutely. But that's what I really like to gear to kids toward.
Absolutely. I agree. Kind of segueing back into our original topic, which was calorie intake today. If you're a sports athlete and you're trying to, even if you're a CrossFit, that's an athletic thing now because it's really blown up. What would you say would be the meal timing? If you're going to work out, if your strength training times are anywhere between 1 and 4 p.m., which is pretty common in the college, level. But if that's what you're going to be doing on a pretty consistent basis, should you have more carbs before? Should you have more carbs after? Because at that level, it kind of matters. So what would you say?
I would say that it's hard to get enough calories in if you're waking up at 11.
So true. God.
And so many college kids wake up at 11, get their butt up at the door at 11. Wake up early enough to get a big first meal. Whenever we were strength training in college, I would do second breakfast at like 9 a.m. We would have, 6 a.m. workouts. I'd wake up. I'd have, a decent breakfast, oatmeal, maybe a couple eggs, just before 6 a.m. Workout, come back, make a big old breakfast for our whole house and eat that around 9, take a little nap, go to class, go to practice, whatever, from there. So, wake up early enough to get enough calories in. As far as before you're working out, I've heard that I was in an ACSM webinar recently, and they were saying a low carbohydrate. If you haven't eaten a whole lot of carbohydrates as you enter in your training session, you're actually more likely to build muscle. So it's more important to get the protein before and then recover after with some carbohydrates as well. That's why chocolate milk is such a good, go-to, because they have a 2-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to proteins. So, and then if you're an athlete, just make sure you're getting enough calories. I see so many times just not enough calories in athletes. And if you're a growing athlete, if you're young and still growing, you just need to be eating all the time and calorically dense foods as much as possible. And then kind of see where you're at. If you're staying the same weight and you see where you're at and you're at 3,000 calories, well, you need to up that to 3,500 or whatever it might be. So,
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it totally answered the question. And cool. The thing that I think that you really touched nicely on was the carbohydrate protein ratio. Because if you think about it this way, right, you have calories and carbohydrates and sugar, and that gets transported into the muscle tissue, turns into glycogen. You're going to be burning that anyways. And so go into that first workout not needing a ton of carbohydrates. It's already stored in your muscle tissue. And so hit the gym hard, burn through that glycogen, build some lean tissue, and then refuel that body with some carbohydrates and some sugar, so you can up that glycogen level so you can do it again tomorrow. Especially with athletes, they're doing something every day, so you're going to have some sort of fuel. So that's a good point. As far as fat loss is concerned, for those who kind of gear towards what I'm trying to talk about, it doesn't really matter. Just to keep it simple, because we're really not trying to do anything crazy. We're not trying to see how far we can throw a med ball to do the spark test. We're not doing anything like that. So keep it super simple, right? The acronym KISS, you probably learned that one. Get your Get your calories, balance your macros out, eat more nutrient, healthy choice foods to do those two things. If you want to eat out, great. That's fine. Just plan for it and stay below that maintenance number, right? In between the basal metabolic rate and below that maintenance number. If you do that, you strength train 2-3 times a week and you walk every day, you are going to be just fine. I promise you.
For somebody cutting calories, what is their caloric deficit? Where do you want them to be?
Well, under the assumption that they're doing what I asked them to do, which is to walk on a daily basis, right, and then strength train 3 times a week. They really don't need to be that much into a caloric deficit. A general rule of thumb is you can take your calculator, take your goal weight. So say you're 220, which I was 222 60 days ago. So say I was 222, but I wanted to be 200, and I wanted to do it at a pretty moderate pace. The general rule of thumb is take 200, and then multiply it by 12. And that's what I should be shooting for as far as calories are concerned. So 2,400 calories. Now, if I wanted to up the pace a little bit, then take 200 and multiply it by 11. And that's probably as low as you want to go. So that's 2,200. Other than that, that's pretty much all you need to do as far as complication. Like I said, most of the people that I deal with, have overcomplicated it for the last 15 years. The last thing I need to do is throw a bunch of information at them. So
that is keeping it super simple for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it works, man. 222 60 days ago, hit 200 yesterday. So, I mean, it works. Thank you. Getting ready to go on a cruise, trying to look extra good for the
Okay, nice.
But it's just science, man. It's mathematics, it's science. Just anatomically, it has to happen. If you eat in a caloric deficit, you can still eat it. I mean, 2,400 calories is a ton of food, right?
Yep.
If you're 246, 250, and you want to lose 60, 70 pounds, you got a lot of food to eat.
It's not going to come off right away. And if you do it too fast, like we talked about, your body gets used to that, and then it just becomes harder for that fat to come off.
Absolutely.
What rate do you say as far as pounds? I usually say 1.5, maybe 2 pounds a week that's really pushing it. But
yeah.
Is that you've done over with them too?
1 to 2. I mean, the American average is like a fourth of that. So if you're doing 1, you're already 4xing what most people do. So
and some of the problem is, we watch these shows like The Biggest Loser, and they're losing 30 pounds in a week. And it's like, man, they are going to be, they're not going to ever get toward their goals because their body's going to use that and they're going to stay that same size forever. So
yeah, and I've watched a lot of interviews with a lot of the trainers who end up leaving because they actually don't agree with what they're doing. They're just getting paid an outrageous amount of money, and most of the clients end up gaining all their weight back anyways. And it's just off camera. So that's kind of the sad part of the industry that I live in. Is a lot of the clients who quit their goal early usually gain it back. A lot of the clients who try to do it too fast usually gain it back. And there's just no shortcut. You got to put the hard work in eventually. You might as well start now. So you might as well do that. So Kyler, can you remind us where we can find you on Instagram and Facebook before I let you go?
Yep, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat at Blades APA. And again, that stands for Athletic Performance Academy. Website, www.bladesapa.com.
Awesome. And if you're looking for me, you can find me at fitnesstrainerjohn.com or facebook.com/mytrainerjohn or at mytrainerjohn on Instagram. Awesome. Kyler, thank you. We'll do this again next week. For those listening, love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Mm-hmm.